Hello, everyone, and welcome to EVTN News. Today, I have a mega news. What is it? A mega news segment, I guess you would say. I have lots of stories, lots of quotes, and right before I get into that, we'll see how well this goes. Um, wasn't feeling well last week, feeling a little bit better, but still not 100% up to speed. See how my voice is by the end, but I do have some cough drops and if I need them. So, all right, let's get started. Pope Leo on Wednesday named Bishop James Cecchio, the current bishop of Metuchen, New Jersey, as coadjutor bishop of the Archdiocese of New Orleans. In 33 years as a priest, Cecchio, age 59, um, has. Oh, so you'll recognize the name Metuchen. That is former Diocese of McCarrick. He has allegedly covered up the abuse of McCarrick, has expressed support for Father James Martin, and a dissident pro-LMNOP ministry. Cecchio will initially serve as coadjutor archbishop alongside Archbishop Gregory Amond, but will succeed him as the next Archbishop of New Orleans upon his retirement. So coadjutor bishop, it usually, Francis used it as whenever there was like a conservative bishop, he would appoint a coadjutor bishop to sort of undermine the current the current bishop's authority. This it doesn't seem that sinister in this situation, as you'll see at the end of this article here, at the end of this quote in the article, but we'll get to that here in just a second. Cecchio has a mixed record on supporting the celebration of the Latin Mass in Metuchen. In 2022, he suppressed the Latin Mass at Corpus Christi Church without providing a public explanation, but on the other hand, he has shown support for other Latin Masses, even celebrating one himself at the Shrine Chapel of the Blessed Sacrament in Raritan earlier this year. So kind of a mixed bag in regards to that. Mixed bag in regards to the McCarrick and James Martin stuff. Just a really a wild card there. The Archdiocese of New Orleans, and this is why he was named coadjutor bishop, probably most likely. The Archdiocese of New Orleans, which Cecchio will eventually lead, has faced a massive abuse scandal, recently offering $230 million settlement to abuse victims. The Archdiocese, the $30 million in abuse settlement payouts to victims. The Archdiocese is facing bankruptcy, so that's likely some of the reasons for why he was named coadjutor, not a more sinister reason that that occurred in the Francis Church. All right. Yeah, so that's interesting. And another one of Leo's appointments seems like a guy gets his promotion. Although, I guess with his mixed record on the Latin Mass, that wasn't typical under the Francis Church. They were all anti-Latin Mass very strongly. So under Leo, it seems like there are a few bishops at least who are supporting Latin Mass. But as you'll see in some articles that will be discussed here very shortly, that that's not always the case with these bishops. Okay. Bishop Georg Baxing of Limburg, president of the German Bishops' Conference, of course, the German Synodal Way, made this statement on Thursday at the close of the bishops' meeting in Fulda. He said, "I utterly reject the insinuation that we in Germany are practicing episcopal disobedience towards Rome or embarking on a confrontational course with Rome. This is simply an unfounded construct and does not reflect my statement or the efforts of all the bishops." On Monday, Bishop Batzing had said that the German bishops would not withdraw their guidelines for blessing LMNOP couples. Bishop explained in the interview, the Pope made it in his interview, his video interview, the Pope made it unmistakably clear that Fiducia Supplicans will not be withdrawn. The German guidelines, Blessings Give Love Strength, are a pastoral realization of Fiducia Supplicans, developed in consultation with the Roman Dicastery for the Doctrine of Faith, tailored to the German context. So he's saying that the blessing of LMNOP couples is something that Leo's not going to withdraw. There you go. And he said, we have no disobedience towards Rome, and we're not in confrontation with them. And with that being the case, at least he's saying that, and Rome saying nothing, then I guess we have to assume that he's telling the truth. So there you go. The German Synodal Way is in full unity with Rome. And that's what I've been saying for years. And a different pope, but same story. And until the Vatican condemns the German Synodal Way, not just say, oh, they're moving too fast, and until a pope condemns the German Synodal Way, then it'll be the same thing, and I'll say the same thing. Okay, today Pope Leo, last week, Pope Leo appointed Italian Archbishop Filippo Iannone, age 67, to lead the powerful Vatican Congregation for Bishops. This is the Pope's first major appointment in almost 5 months, replacing the vacancy left by his election as Pope. However, Pope Leo also confirmed Archbishop Ilson de Jesus Montanari as Secretary for the Congregation for Bishops for another 5-year term. Blog.messa in Latino bluntly calls this appointment bad news. On October 24, the U.S. Bishops' Canon Law Chair. Okay, so this so Iannone has been pretty unimpressive. Like he's been pretty quiet. Hasn't done a whole lot that made news headlines. However, if you remember last year's Immaculate Conception, the Feast of the Immaculate Conception question in the United States, Iannone responded that this feast must be observed as a day of obligation on the day to which it is transferred. So this meant that Monday, December 9th, 2024 would be the day of obligation in the U.S., despite earlier calendars suggesting otherwise. So in the Novus Ordo rite, I guess the second Sunday of Advent took precedence over the Immaculate Conception. In the traditional Roman rite, it did not, and so you could attend the Latin Mass and you would celebrate the Feast of the Immaculate Conception and thereby be dispensed of the Holy Day of Obligation. Or, well, I guess the transferred feast. So you wouldn't be forced to attend a Novus Ordo on a day that wasn't the Immaculate Conception whenever you attended a Mass for the Immaculate Conception on the feast day. So, so that was what happened. Anyway, canon law allows episcopal conferences to regulate such obligations. A lot of bishops dispense their people from the feast day obligation anyway. They just basically were thinking like their priests wouldn't be able to cover, especially if they're covering multiple parishes. They wouldn't have time to schedule enough masses to accommodate people's schedules, and so they dispense them from it. It kind of makes sense. On January 23rd, 2025, after the Immaculate Conception, the Dicastery for Divine Worship issued an official note correcting Archbishop Iannone, clarifying that when a holy day is transferred, the obligation does not transfer, effectively superseding his guidance. So he had misinterpreted canon law, so gotta say, he kind of has some blunders on his record. He's appointing Pope Leo, and he's replacing Pope Leo, or he's replacing Prevost as the prefect of the Congregation for Bishops. And I gotta say, when Prevost was in the Congregation for Bishops, especially in within the past 2 years, it was an absolute train wreck, a disaster. And that's not saying he specifically appointed them, but he signed off on the removal of Strickland. Let's look at the facts here. Weisenberger to Detroit, Martin and Charlotte, McElroy to D.C. I mean, these were catastrophic appointments, and they were all signed off by Prevost. So, let's hope that this guy. Let's hope that this isn't as catastrophic as the last one, but I don't know. Again, the jury's still out a little bit on Pope Leo, but we see which direction he's heading. He's heading in a synodal direction, which isn't Catholic. The Diocese of Austin said that... Okay, so here we go. The Diocese of Austin said Catholic students in College Station, Texas did not secure required permissions to hold a Latin Mass on campus, and it did not permit it to proceed. This is under the new bishop. And I don't have his name here. The bishop was newly appointed to Austin, Texas. I'm trying to scroll through. Okay, the newly installed Bishop Daniel Garcia has crushed another Latin Mass in the Diocese of Austin. His closing, let's see, he went out with a bang in his previous diocese in California, where he crushed a Latin Mass just a few weeks ago, and now he crushes another Mass, this time for college students. Honestly, that's a pretty rotten record, and that doesn't really endear you to the people. I know that you're not trying to do everything just to make people happy, but a lot of bishops do. Except when it comes to the Latin Mass. Can't have any of that. People like it. Gotta crush it. Texas A&M sophomore Nick Cardinal, president of the local chapter of a group known as Juventutum International, said in a press release September 24th that a priest from the Diocese of Victoria, Texas, was scheduled to say the Mass for members of the group in a reserved room in an on-campus conference center. What a great way to evangelize, be part of the university. The priest called the night before the Mass was scheduled, however, saying the chancellor of the Austin Diocese sent him a directive expressly forbidding him from traveling to College Station, so someone ratted him out. Cardone, a convert to Catholicism, told CNA that a group of over 100 students invites priests to say the Latin Mass once a month and hosts a social event afterward. That's harmless unless people are afraid of Catholicism. The Masses normally take place in students' homes, he said. Yeah, so private Masses, underground Masses, that's what we have to do. He said that after attending the Latin Mass in his home parish, he was shocked by the modern liturgy at St. Mary's, which is the local parish, I assume, and sought the traditional rite. So he was shocked by the modern liturgy. Cardone wanted to find a way to attend the Latin Mass in College Station. He initially emailed Father Will Stratton, the pastor at St. Mary's, asking for the traditional Mass, but received a response that saying that under Traditionis Custodes they can't do it. He then emailed all the priests in College Station, and they said it's the bishop's jurisdiction. So last spring, the group asked Austin's Bishop Joe Vasquez Now Archbishop of Galveston, Houston for permission, submitting over 100 signatures in a petition requesting the Latin Mass. The students were told in an emailed response that the bishop appreciates that they enjoy the liturgy, but because of church law and a vague situation in the diocese, he could not authorize it. Vasquez is no fan of the Latin Mass. He was appointed to cover Strickland's diocese when Strickland was kicked out. And as his final blow, Vasquez crushed all the diocesan masses in Tyler, Texas, and then just a week later, a new bishop was appointed. So it was his. He was. What would I say? He was told to do it, and because he was obedient, he was promoted to Houston. So Vasquez is no friend of the Latin Mass. He's just he does what he's told when it comes to crushing the Mass, and so a petition's not obviously wasn't going to do anything. I believe he crushed masses in Austin too. So, I mean, honestly, pathetic, but what else do you expect from the Francis bishops? A priest from the FSSP who has said the traditional Mass for students on occasion suggested they affiliate with the Juventutum, presumably house masses. So they probably wouldn't want to say who that priest is, and it probably wasn't given permission by the bishop. I mean, obviously not, because he wouldn't give permission for anything. The Juventutum A&M chapter, which now has nearly 140 members, says it is part of the international Juventutum movement. And that's nice, but they're not going to have a Mass for probably a long time, honestly. Because I don't expect the Mass to be freed. In fact, I expect it to be more crushed than freed. And you can see why. More disappointment to come in this show, actually. But let's take a little let's take a little bit different path right now and talk about Cardinal Cupich. And no, not about how he crushed the Institute of Christ the King there, suspended their faculties because they wouldn't say the Novus Ordo. He tried to bully them, and they refused, but now they're suspended until he's gone. I don't know. We'll see. I don't expect Pope Leo to remove him for a while. I mean, eventually, but I don't think anytime soon. I'd be happy to be wrong, but call me a skeptic. So, as you know, Cardinal Cupich will honor pro-baby murder Senator Richard Durbin with the Lifetime Achievement Award at November 3rd fundraiser, so about a month away. And there have been so far 10 bishops, 2 retired bishops, who have publicly criticized Cupich. So the usual suspects, Paprocki, Corleone, Connolly. So you're probably familiar, I've mentioned them several times on this channel. You're probably familiar with them. And if you're not, then you should be, because these bishops are generally on the good side of things. And in terms of like Latin Mass, I believe every single one of those, all 3 of those bishops have said a lot of, I've actually said Latin Masses and ministers some sacraments. So very friendly towards, very much on the good side of things. Bishop James Wall of Gallup, New Mexico, he's pretty good. And then there are, Bishop Michael Olson of Fort Worth. So, he's on the conservative side of things, although when it comes when it came to the Carmelite nuns in his diocese, there was a lot of back and forth with them until they got the SSPX to serve them, and now it's quiet. They haven't said anything because they have a priest and they have the traditional mass, and they're Carmelites, and so they're not saying anything, which is how they should be. But anyway, Olson criticized Cupich, so it's fine. We'll take we'll take the support we can get. And then there's Bishop David Ricken of Green Bay and Bishop Carl Kemme of Wichita. And I'm not familiar with either of those two. But good on them for releasing a statement. So I'm happy to hear that. And I hope more bishops speak out, but I don't expect that. And I think, let me see here. And I think that I'll follow that up soon. But anyway, 9 bishops spoke. Durbin is a senior member of the Senate Appropriations Committee, which controls how federal funds are allocated. In a staged and publicized phone call in 2020, Durbin pledged to financially help the troubled Chicago Archdiocese. Months later, his committee approved expanded relief for the virus that benefited the Archdiocese. Catholic Charities received $1.4 billion nationally, including $8 million for Chicago, the largest affiliate award. The Chicago Archdiocese also received $77 million in the Paycheck Protection Program. Durbin has been barred from receiving communion in the Springfield Diocese, Paprocki's diocese, since 2004. Before I assume that's before Paprocki was appointed, and Paprocki reaffirmed it in 2018. So there's a money connection. I don't know how much that influences Cupich, probably at least a little bit. And of course, the immigration funding is big time in Chicago. They receive many millions for immigration funding for the Catholic Charities branch of Chicago, which is probably going to be shut down. But again, we'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at that after the fact. Okay. So there was a Rorate Caeli reader from the Diocese of Brooklyn, New York City. They sent a message that said, just announced after Mass today that Bishop Brennan is ending the Latin Mass at this church, at a church in Brooklyn, New York, on October 12th. So that's 2 weeks. They give him a 2-week notice. Shut down the Mass. The justification is enforcing Tritionis Custodes. And, it does seem like there's a coordinated effort to destroy Latin Masses, especially recently. I mean, it seems like there's several every week. They're being shut down. And I'm wondering if there's something, if there is some kind of conspiracy going on. I understand that, all these places got 2-year permissions from the Vatican, and there was one that applied for an extension just recently, within the past few months, and they got approval from the Vatican. So the Vatican is approving extensions for Latin Masses, but these bishops are not requesting them. It would take you 5 minutes. You got to copy and paste what you had written 2 years ago. Maybe add a little bit of text, that's it. 5 minutes. You can send it out. They're so lazy that they can't even spend 5 minutes requesting that a community be stay together instead of ripped apart. And it's really pathetic, honestly. I mean, are there any other places in their diocese that are having success? Like, it's just you're getting what you ask for. And what you're asking for is no seminarians, and most bishops are really struggling in that regard, and very well deserved. and you're actively trying to destroy the faith of your parishioners, then that's what you get. And I think a lot of there is a vocations crisis, but I think it's fabricated by the modernist bishops. Like they're trying to bring about a vocations crisis because they don't want good Catholic men in the priesthood. They don't. They want women. That's what they want. And so they're trying to create a vocations crisis, and they're succeeding. Because who wants to be a priest for a rotten bishop, like this guy, Bishop Martin? It turns out Martin only delayed the TLM crushing to calm down the backlash. Remember when he got backlash? But that was more for the Reverend Novus Ordos. He kind of quieted down for a while because his true thoughts were leaked to the public, and he's a real jerk. The people will fall in line and obey. They will. That's just really sad. I say Martin, he's basically shown himself to be an unhinged jerk. And everyone should resist him, but they will not. If the priests collectively offered the Latin Mass without his approval, it would force Rome, and force the Vatican to react to it. But they're not. And that's part of the problem, is no one's standing up. They can just go to the SSPX, and that's okay, but these diocesan priests, if even the 4 Latin Mass priests in this diocese just stood up and just offered the Latin Mass in their churches, would they all 4 be kicked out collectively? It would look really bad on the bishop. That's rule number 1, don't make your bishop look bad. And when you do, then he's going to fight back. But we have the faith. They have the churches, we have the faith. It's not that hard. Do the math. We have the people too. Bishop Martin has 0 supporters. Maybe the modernist heretics, but they don't have the faith. And that again, it comes back. It's kind of like a circle. It comes back. Okay, so Martin wrote a letter to the Latin Mass people. He said, this chapel, he gave them a chapel and crushed the other masses. I crushed all the diocesan masses and gave them a chapel. He said, this chapel holds approximately 350 people and has recently been renovated specifically for the celebration of the Tridentine Latin Mass. Please understand that the chapel is not intended to accommodate everyone currently attending the Tridentine Latin Mass in their respective parishes. What a jerk. He also said there will not be any programming offered at Little Flower Chapel other than Sunday and Holy Day Masses, so all other aspects of Catholic life are to be engaged in at your local parish. So don't form any community, don't have any activities, donate your money to your local parishes, and thank me for not crushing everything. And it's not intended to accommodate everyone, so don't go. I'm really discouraging you from going. And then you should still thank me and give money to the diocese. So, honestly pathetic. And again, I've made my thoughts very clear on that, so I don't think anything else needs to be said. I think you could read his comments and see that for yourself. Okay, and then the last thing I have is Pope Leo, a speech from Pope Leo. Now, I haven't talked. Did I mention Our Lady of Synodality or something? He said Mary was a synodal woman. Like that was really bizarre, but I definitely, heard that kind of nonsense from Francis. But I'm not going to dwell on Pope Leo's quotes very much anymore, but I just wanted to share this with you, and just to see how much different is Leo from the last guy. And I'm going to read this, and then you can make your assessment. Pope Leo on Monday said to European institutions need people who know how to live. Sorry, I need a drink. People know how to live a healthy secularism while encouraging recognition that religion has value both on a personal and social level. He said, when the religious dimension is authentic and well cultivated, it can greatly enrich interpersonal relationships and help people live in community and society. And how important it is today to emphasize the value and importance of human relationships. The Pope also emphasized that participation in interreligious dialogue, by its very nature, recognizes that religion has value both on a personal level and in the social sphere. He emphasized that promoting dialogue between cultures and religions is a fundamental objective for a Christian politician. I don't even know what he's talking about. It's Vatican II garbage speak. Basically, what you'd hear from a Freemason or the Chinese Patriotic Church. A Catholic would say religion has value. Religion is essential. The Catholic religion is essential. Not some unity between the Buddhists and the Christians. Like, come on. A fundamental objective. Dialogue between cultures and religions is a fundamental objective. There's no dialogue. Whenever terrorists are coming into your churches in France and burning them down, how's that dialogue? What are you going to do? Tell them, oh, you really shouldn't do that. But Europe is being overtaken by Islam. And this Pope's not. This Pope wants to dialogue. So that's where it's going. I'm not gonna quote him a whole lot. I'm really not. Just kind of like Francis. I just ignored most of the stuff that he said, unless it was like egregiously heretical. I'm gonna focus more on the bishop appointments. I think that's kind of a kind of more of a focus that I've always had, and this has been a busy news week, at least in terms of some quotes and everything. I wish there were some positive stories to report. Oh, I did want to get back to Cupich. I didn't talk about I didn't talk so much about the Cupich thing. So initially, whenever I saw the Cupich story, let me pull this up. I want to pull this up real quick. When I saw the Cupich story, I thought, okay, I mean, that's par for the course. He hasn't given awards to, these Democrats, but it's not like it's the first time he's done anything. So I don't know if any of these bishops, I don't know what the rest of these bishops are waiting for. I think there's like 400 some. There's like 200 that are like retired, but 400 some in the United States. So what's the excuse for the rest of these bishops? I mean, we have a double-digit number, 10. Yay! 10 bishops spoke out against Cupich. What's the excuse for the rest of them? Can you find 5 minutes? Again, 5 minutes. They can't find 5 minutes to say Cupich is a goal. Cupich is Cupich is an enemy of the faith. It's not hard to say. I just said it. I call on Cupich to resign. It's not hard to say. But what do they expect? I think they think it will be dealt with at the USCCB meeting in November. Now, the award takes place before that, And Cupich has doubled down and said, yeah, I'm going to award him because he supports our he supports our Marxist idea of open borders immigration as promoted by Francis. Cupich was actually a favorite of Francis, by the way. I hope you know. But he's had a history of doing this. And if they take it to the USCCB meeting, they can expect him to dismiss it and probably leave early, like he did at least one of the meetings. Yeah, he left early. In 2018, all the bishops hyped up the USCCB meeting like they were going to come up with some milestone resolution on the McCarrick situation. But Cupich came up with a game plan and immediately shut down efforts right as the meeting started. He said, oh, I have a message from the Vatican. Even though the Vatican didn't send the message to, I think it was Cardinal Donardo, who was the USCCB president. So Cupich read a letter from the Vatican. They used him as their cover-up guy. And he's been added to some of these Vatican committees. So he shut down efforts before they could even talk about it. They were all prepared to talk about it. They were prepared to vote on a resolution about McCarrick. I mean, they were telling all their people, just wait until the meeting and we'll come up with something collectively. And they didn't, because Cupich undermined the whole thing. He undermined the whole effort. And you know why? Well, Vigano said that Cupich was promoted because of the influence of McCarrick. Cupich, Tobin, McElroy, Worrell. And since 2018, McElroy has been named a Cardinal and he's been promoted to Washington. It checks out. In 2021 or so, remember Biden bishops? Yes. Cupich, he came up with that. So Archbishop Gomez, at that point the president of the USCCB, he said, man, this is a real problem. Biden is presenting himself as a Catholic, and we really need to look into whether or not he should be allowed to receive communion. And there were bishops that were saying, yeah, he shouldn't. I mean, Strickland was one of the big voices, and look what happened. He got removed. But Cupich, on the other hand, said, no, we shouldn't ban anyone from communion, even if they're in a very obvious contradiction to the Catholic faith. And even if they're preaching, even if they're representing anti-Catholic ideas like Biden. And Cupich got like 50 to 60 signatures from the bishops saying that Biden should not be denied communion. And these bishops I refer to as Biden bishops. And these bishops still exist today. And so we're not talking about overwhelming opposition to Cupich. There are plenty of bishops who are fine with what he's doing. But I think this is a test. I think this is testing Pope Leo. We'll see if Leo's actually going to do anything or not. He talked about polarizing. The Latin Mass is polarizing. The LMNOP question is polarizing. What about giving an award to a pro-death politician? Is that polarizing? And will Leo do anything? Leo's from Chicago. I think he knows Cupich pretty well. Is Cupich on the Congregation for Bishops? In the department that Prevost headed? That's an honest question. I think he might be. I might be wrong. I don't know. Maybe I am. And if I am, then I'm wrong. But Cupich is on some of these committees in the Vatican. I'm sure he has talked to Prevost a decent bit. I mean, just makes a lot of sense. I don't think, I'm not saying, and I'm sure Leo didn't tell him to give this politician an award. I doubt it. I think Leo doesn't want to give anyone awards. I don't think he wants to interact with. I don't think he wants any of the bishops or cardinals to interact with any of the politicians. I think he just wants them to keep their mouths shut and stay out of the spotlight. But I think Cupich is testing Leo. I think the German bishops, they're seeing how far they can push everything. Everyone's just seeing. They're kind of treading their water, kind of stepping in, crossing some lines, seeing which lines they can cross, and so far everyone's been able to cross every line. There's even a Latin Mass there's a Latin Mass in Rome today. What was it? St. Peter's Basilica? I don't know. Let's see. I know that Taylor Marshall posted a video. I'm trying to find it here. There's definitely a Latin Mass in Rome today, and it's a big deal for the Feast of St. Michael. So, I mean, everyone's doing whatever they want. Martin can ban masses. Bishops can authorize masses. Latin masses, that is, of course. Bishops can authorize Latin masses. Bishops can ban as many Latin masses as they want. Leo won't do anything. And, yeah, people are just pushing to see how far they can go. And right now, I don't think too many of them have been reprimanded. So, let's see what happens with Cupich. I don't know if anything will happen. But again, I wasn't surprised. This is what Cupich has been doing for. It's what he's been doing for many years. So anyway, all right. I'm glad that everyone's watching this channel. I just seem to get the biggest spam comments all the time, and it's not. Just in the future, if you're going to comment, don't comment hi or hello, and that's it, because I don't know who these people are, but I think a lot of them are spam comments trying to get, like, I don't know what you would call it, like awards for commenting on my channel. You get to be like a fan or something, but none of these people actually know anything about what I'm talking about, and they don't care. I run this channel so that people will be informed of the news stories, and you can either watch it or not. Not everyone's going to agree with everything I say, but that's fine. I'm not worried about that. But if you're just spam commenting just so you can get like a sticker or something, I don't appreciate that. So anyone who watches the live stream, just comment. You can comment something that's actually relevant, and I'm happy to have your comment. But I just have to ban a lot of people because of the spammer comments. I don't want them getting awards. I want the real people who actually care about the Catholic faith to comment on this channel. And I want them to get the awards. So anyway, that's that. That's a little mini rant. But all right, that's it. This has been EVTN News. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. We are the laity, and we will not be silent.